I'm your host and MC, James Ross, and this is Quantum Leopard. This episode, we have the wonderful Joshua Bethanaia. This set was recorded on the 10th of February 2024 by Aniruddh Ojha at Bold. Aniruddh also did the editing, and the interview took place on the 28th of October 2025. Content warnings on this set for cancer, but it's the king, so make your own mind up about whether that's important to you or not. Enjoy!
Assalamu alaikum. Do we have any Muslims in? I'm not. I'm just being inclusive. Hello to the non-Muslims as well. White women, namaste. It's nice to be here. Just a quick headline about me. So name's Joshua. I'm Indian. From the source, from India. I'm an immigrant, and this is my voice. This is as much energy as you're going to get from me. So just strap in. This voice isn't really useful in a lot of situations. I'm not much of a hype man or a motivational speaker, and this is certainly not helpful during when I feel passionate. My dirty talk is a lot like being in a doctor's appointment. Are you comfortable? You're going to feel a little prick. Can I have a stool sample? You know the usual. Thank you. It's lovely that everyone laughs out loud. Sometimes I do gigs when people they find it funny, but they tell it to me after the show. It's they sit through the show not expressing anything, but in their head they think, "Oh yes, that's funny. Yes." I think the worst was when an audience member just shouted out "lol." It's those acronyms are quite interesting. I feel like LOL has withstood the test of time. LOL and maybe LMAO. What happened to ROFL? ROFL. Remember that? People stopped using that. It's have we lost reasons to roll on the floor laughing, or is there just not enough real estate? The whole king situation is kind of sad. Couldn't get through that sentence. The royal prostate has enlarged. I keep wondering about the family. They must have been quite hard for them, waiting for the doctor's news, anxiously, sweating profusely if you are the younger brother. I don't know if anyone checked on him. How is Andy doing? Just when the attention was coming back to him, where they were going to talk about his passion for travel. It just seems like Big Brother steps in and takes away all the attention. Classic Big Brother. But I feel like I don't want to make jokes on it, and I don't think anyone should make jokes on it. I don't think like if you think that becoming a king quite late in your life and then finding out you have cancer a year later while your son disowns you, while your younger brother is like accused of various crimes, if you find that funny, you should take a hard look at yourself. You should carve out time and think about yourself, like really make time. And if you can't make time, like use the potential extra bank holiday we might get. That joke didn't go so well in West London the other day. It's nice. Like I feel like trying to this year I'm trying to be more in touch with my emotions. It's not very expressive on my face though. I'm trying to think of getting a pet, but a lot of people adopt pets just for emotional support. Like imagine being that pet, right? Like having a sudden awareness of or questioning what is the purpose of my life, and am I going to be a guard dog? Am I going to sniff out drugs? You see this millennial here who can't afford to get on the housing market, who gets overwhelmed with laundry. Just give him a little nudge every now and then, so he doesn't have a mental breakdown. I read an article the other day, and this is like true. You can Google this. Someone adopted an emotional support alligator. You see that, right? And it's the alligator is not bitten anyone, right? And this alligator, the way it expresses emotional support is it's known for its hugs and kisses. That's what the article says. I feel like only a white person would look at an alligator and think, I bet he's a good kisser. So I became single quite recently. I feel like I've been in relationships all my life. I think I'm retrospecting. I feel like I fall in love too easily, and I'm trying to stop doing that. But I'm also trying to date, and it's kind of weird to relearn things. Being single. I don't particularly think I'm a very good-looking guy. Don't fight me on it. But I don't think I'm a bad-looking guy either. I feel like I'm a 6 out of 10, which is like a 7 out of 10 post Black Lives Matter movement, right? I'm on all the apps like Tinder, Hinge, the kinky one as well, Borrow My Doggy. I mean Field. Like, do we know Field? Yeah. So that's the app for those who don't know what Field is. Field is where you date where you date people who are absolutely beyond saving, right? And there are there's a lot lot of acronyms people use on the bio, and sometimes I have to Google it. Sometimes I don't pay attention. I just end up going out on a date. I met someone who had FWB. Turns out it was like friends with benefits. I got a friend, then later had to get health insurance as well. Was someone with ENM, which is ethical non-monogamy. Just call it cheating. I don't know. So in my bio, all I did was I just put, my favorite, ROFL. Just want to laugh on the floor. And feet. I should go. But I'm 36, and I don't know how much you guys know about Indian culture apart from those 200 years, right? There's a lot of there's a lot of pressure to get married in India, and right from your 20s. But I feel like I don't understand what marriage is. I've been trying to understand it. One thing I read was marriage is like the union of two souls. And one example that went with it was when Prince Philip passed away, the Queen died shortly after, like about a space of a year or so. Some say that she died of a broken heart. She was so heartbroken, devastated, that she let go and she passed away herself. And you know what? I think I get it. I'd be pretty upset and devastated too if my cousin died. My name is Joshua. Have a good rest of the night. Thank you.
And that was Joshua Bethanaia. Joshua, thank you for a lovely set. That was really, really great. Really, really enjoyed that. So you open with a couple of nice little one-liners before announcing how low energy you're going to be. And pitching yourself like that, I find fascinating because it is the absolute opposite of what I'm always trying to do as a solo performer and an MC, which is bring the energy, bring the room up. And you're actively putting them down and dampening the room, which I find fascinating. So I want to know what's led you to that approach, and does it work differently in different rooms? Does that come from nerves? Does it come from confidence? What's going on with that?
It's a good question. I think I don't remember which comedian I saw this here. I think it was Ralph or something, where he just states up front. It's more like, hey, this is what you're going to get, right? Because I feel like what I've realized is I don't look like the conventional comedian. People don't look at me and oh, he's going to be a comedian on. So, and then I start speaking, and I'm literally speaking in the tone that I'm speaking in now. And I think at one point because I was doing a much longer set, pretty much like an hour, I just set expectations. Hey, this is pretty much the rest of the hour. I hope you know what you're getting into. Just so you know, the jokes are good, but this is the energy that it's going to be, and it can get monotonous over time. So I'm saying it up front, and people really laughed at it. I'm like, okay, I'm going to hold on to this, and I just stuck with it, and that always gets a little laugh at the top. But I'm literally just pointing it out, setting expectations, what to expect. So because people laughed, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to keep treating this as a joke, and I just found that quite useful.
I mean, I think it definitely demonstrates self-knowledge, right? And that makes an audience confident in who you are and how you're presenting himself. Of okay, look, he knows that he's this quiet, subdued, relatively low energy, and that's fine. We don't need to tell him that. He knows it already. Yeah. And that gives a degree of confidence. I mean, I think it's definitely supported by the quality of the writing, right? And it's a testament to the strength of the writing that you don't You sell it in the sense of there is light and shade to what you're doing, but it's much subtler, and it kind of, I think, draws people in a similar way to I mean, it reminds me a little bit of Rosie Jones's delivery, which is it's slow because it's medically slow, right? She couldn't talk any faster even if she wanted to. And similarly, like, that draws people in and makes you absolutely pay attention. And like, it means that she's got like a real economy of words in terms of her writing. And I feel that you've got a similar sort of thing in terms of like, okay, well, you're not going to be doing big shouting explosive movements or anything like that. And that forces people to pay more attention if they're going to get on board, which, and you know, they will be paying some attention because they weren't raised in a barn, right?
Yeah.
So in terms of like your volume and your sort of level of extroversion, I mean, like, is this something that is this a way that you've always been? Like, was your sort of family environment growing up, you know, this sort of subdued, this sort of reserved, or how was that?
I don't think anyone in my family is like loudly expressive. I mean, we can be within ourselves at points, but in general, we're not like loud people, like not too much flamboyant with our expressions, things like that. So it's more like, here's what we say and here is it. And I was like mostly like a quiet kid, like, you know, I didn't want to like raise my voice and like say something. I always had this fear of saying something stupid. So I would like really think during a conversation, and like, so in a group conversation, I'd be the one who'd listen a bit, and then I'd say one thing, you know, and I'd be like, okay, that's good enough for me.
The sniper,
the classic introvert, but I'm like, I've got enough time to think about it. So I think I was always that person, and I think I had like, well, growing up, I had like a group of friends who were like, they were quite. It was the first time I had like a whole bunch of non-judgmental friends. You know, there was like nobody was putting on an act. Everyone was a weirdo, and it was a bit just easy to be myself. I didn't have to mask or anything. You know, I was just like, okay, this is who I am, and like people just like, oh, cool, that's what you are, and it's this took me along, and it's like, so I think having that sort of community like lets you be yourself, which is good to have, is what I realized.
That's interesting. So I'm interested to know. So you reference masking there. So what are you masking? And you also reference, you know, sort of, you know, a bunch of people who are weirdos and being themselves. What does that mean in the context of your sort of peer group growing up?
I think
what was weird in that context?
Like I remember having a friend, and this was like weirdly like a church setting, you know, where everyone needs to sort of come across as the good person, you know, and everyone like the way you speak in a public setting, and the sort of words that you use, what you laugh at. There's a lot of peer pressure to look cool, because this is also like in my teenage years, and you know, where it's like you feel like the world is looking at you, but although nobody cares, but and then you look at other people, like, so I remember meeting some people and like, oh, this guy is pretty obnoxious, or like he's being a little too loud, but the rest of the group didn't really care because they just accepted him for who he was. And then over time, as I got to know him, like, oh, I really like this guy, he's a pretty fun guy. So there's more like that realization of like, oh, there are people who are like this, but they're just different. And I didn't have to like pretend to be someone to be socially acceptable, you know, where you have to be a bit charming and be like, where you like have to put on an act. At least for me, it felt like an act. And then I was like, I'm just going to be myself, you know, like if I find something, I'm going to say it. If they don't like me, it's fine. But I feel like they would like me even if I'm not conventionally expressive or saying something clever. So I think that was very helpful to sort of be myself.
I mean, you sound like you're very happy with the level of expressive that you are. Is that something you would ever that you would change even if you could?
Maybe like probably in like when I think about doing like longer shows, or like if I were to like someday like do like a big theater or something, or even like act in front of for like for a sketch or a TV thing, I'd be like, oh, I feel like I really need to not be myself, like maybe pretend to be this person. So like, because like when I did my first Aaaw show, one of my biggest learnings was like that 1 hour will be great like when I do a show in London or something, but at the Fringe, when like people are seeing shows back to back, people are tired, and like when I'd finish my shows, I'd go meet some other friends. It was like a routine. And because he would finish at the same time, and we'd ask, oh, how did the show go? And I'd be like, oh, mine was great. I had only 2 people fall asleep today. That was like the bar. And then I realized, oh, the room is hot, and it's like, and my voice just adds to it, and like people are quite comfortable in like falling asleep to it. And I wouldn't like blame them. It's like, so it's more like little things of that is like, oh, can I actually do this for like long shows? So I probably want to try to experiment, like just to be a bit more like, oh, what is something crazy I can do suddenly in between? Would I need more visuals? So I think that's something I need to figure out I'm trying to figure out in my next show. So just to break the monotony. So yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, like, I mean, you've got the sort of the kind of a very relaxing tone of voice that something that I think quite a lot of people use specific content creators to fall asleep to, right? And like, doing some sort of, on the one hand, leaning into it and being like a comedian doing sets that you can sort of gently fall asleep to, and having a sort of a comedian lullaby, I think is potentially an untapped market. Yeah, I don't know.
Funny you say that. I've been writing something which is like a potential podcast sort of series. It's called Brown Noise Comedy to Fall Asleep to.
Nice. Yeah.
And I've just written stuff, but I'm just lazy, like getting it out there. But yeah, like hopefully I can like say it out loud and like see where it leads. But yeah, but it's also like. What I've noticed is like it works better in like a club night, because in general most comics are like loud and like they're like got the energy level up, and then so I'm more like a little change of pace, so that works additionally in my favor. And that setting is, I'm just happy being this low caliber like voice, but like in an hour show when it's just me, if the audiences come just for me, I think that's where I probably want to like change it up a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, as with my promoter's hat on, you are absolutely perfect to be sandwiched in between a high energy opener of a section and a high energy closer of a section or whatever, right? Yeah. I would never put you on as a high energy opener. That would be insane. And that's what I wanted to open a show, like get things off with a bang, etc., etc. But like as somebody who's like, okay, well, we need a bit of a rest, but somebody who's just good and clever and interesting and engaging, who can bridge the gap between somebody throwing some pies and somebody catching pies. Like that's what I'd want, right? Cool. So when you were talking about the king and his prostate, you crack up as much as I think I've ever seen you crack up on stage. I've seen you probably about half a dozen times. So with this bit and the ruffle section, it strikes me that you're a very methodical and logical comedy writer. You're taking the premise and easing it through sort of one stage at a time. You're establishing the material basis for ruffle falling from usage, even when working through and outlining the emotional landscape for Charles to draw it out. So this monarchy bit is quite revolutionary in its implications, so without ever like actually coming out and saying it would be both funny and good if the king died, right? So I think the plausible deniability of this bit I think really works there comedically. But I'm wondering, like, do you need to do that to protect yourself from audiences that might not agree? I'm like, you mentioned how it went in West London. My feeling is that West London is sort of an umbrella term or a stand-in for other gigs, other audiences. So I mean, like, do you have that bit in there, in those words, with that ambiguity in order to protect yourself from people who like might enjoy touching a flag inappropriately as a hobby?
Yeah. I think for me, like, I never really understood how people felt about the monarchy, right? Like so that's always been like, oh, there are people who will like the monarchy, like that never struck me, because I would see stuff about like jokes online and people would make fun of it, but that's all I saw, right? Like, and that's from a distance. And when I came here, I realized, I do these shows in a lot of small places, and there are some places which are like super conservative, and they're like, like these are important things to them, and I want to like make fun of it, but I don't want to hurt them, and I sort of get why they think this is important to them. And at some point, some places it's just genuine fear, like, oh, I don't know how these people would react, if I just shat on the monarchy. And like to be honest, like I was in general quite nervous to talk about it, and I think like it was probably like Declan Kennedy on before me that night, who did something. I think he made a joke about, I've never heard the word prostate used so much in a week of news or something.
Yeah.
That was the joke he said. And I was like, that sort of game. And the reaction from the audience was like, okay, these are like very anti-monarchy, very Republican crowd. So I'm like, okay, cool. I think I can do this bit, because I'm always quite hesitant, especially to talk about it in some parts, because I remember doing some jokes in some places where some people just went, that's not funny, they just say it out loud. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I don't want to, like, just like there should be a point to it. I think that was more like, it was very topical at that point, so I think that's why I sort of went with that bit.
Nice. Cool. So I'm intrigued by the idea that only white people might think that an alligator would be a good kisser. So this clearly resonates with the crowd, but I want to know what the underlying logic of this joke is. Like, is it just that we've grown up in a society with fewer obvious sources of danger? Explain to me what's going on.
It is it's obviously very, very reductive. Like, I think I remember, I don't know if that article was from someone in Florida, which sort of makes more sense, and I didn't want to just say Florida in general, like, because we're performing in the UK, it probably make more sense in the US. I wasn't too sure if everyone looked at Florida the same way as like we look at Florida Man, and there's also this common trope of like like in horror movies, like where where like a white family would sort of look at a haunted house and be like, yeah, let's go live here. That's not something like a black family would do. And it's like, oh, that is insane. Like, what are you doing? Let's get the hell out of here. That sort of notion. So it's mostly just building on that notion. It's obviously like, I mean, looking back, like that's like very reductive, but it's more like, okay, this will get a laugh. It's more like I'm just going for the joke, and it's like, it's not something I'd like say is like one of the best jokes ever written, but it's more like, oh, this is like an easy joke to make.
Fine. I think it makes sense that you've broadened it out from a specific reference. You've made it more general. The basic frame of it still works, but it means that more people get it. I think sometimes you do just need to make compromises with material like that. I'm like, yes, I could make this joke more technically accurate, but fewer people would get it, right? I think
I was also trying to write a bit about like very basic things of observation, like being an immigrant, and when I would talk about I talk a lot about colonialism, and like I would talk about like how people died in India about certain things, but then I'd make a reference about a dog dying, and people would like react a bit, and I'm like, okay, I forget, like, okay, the animal dying is more important than this. That felt a very.
So I should say, yes, I'm agreeing in terms of the audience's perception. I do not think that, like, the death of one dog is morally comparable to the Bengal famine, right? Like, those are different things.
It's also like a very Western. I don't know if it's like a white thing or it's like a Western thing, but like anything Western, like it was just very easy. It's like I think and this is again, like, I think I did this like quite some time ago. It's not something I would write now, because what I've realized at that point, it was very, because that's the sort of comedy I'd consume. Like, it's very easy to just say, oh, it's like a race thing. But I think now it's more like I'm a bit more conscious, like, okay, hang on, like I'm not bringing in class into this whole conversation. So I'm trying my best to not just simplify some of these bits, even though, like, in this case, like, it absolutely does not affect anyone, or it's more like it's not generalizing or punching down on anyone. I'm trying to be a bit more conscious, like generalizing certain things, unless it's just it's a simple thing that everyone would laugh at. It wouldn't like affect anyone. But sometimes, like, having that deep knowledge will bubble out into simple things. So I think my feelings at that point was like, oh, this is how white people lived, this is how non-white people lived. But then I think over time you realize, oh, hang on, I'm actually a lot more privileged than, like, I'd say 50% of white people in this country. And then you sort of realize, so I think once you your emotions of that change. Like even little jokes like that would probably not make it to the
Yeah.
surface. So that's been quite something that's evolved in me in the last couple of years or so, I'd say. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think including the class component in your consciousness as a writer, I think is extremely important. Not just in terms of the quality of the writing and making sure that like politically it's punching in the right direction, but also in terms of just your ability to relate to an audience, right? Because
Yeah.
like, you know, if you are places that are not London and a handful of cities and you're doing certain material, you need to do that with a consciousness and awareness of how you're coming across and what the implications of things that you're doing
Yeah,
are, right?
like so if I go to some far off place and there's a lot of poor people there, like who are white, and they probably wouldn't get like, hang on, why you going against white people, you know? And it's like,
Yeah.
and then you stop and realize, okay, actually that does make sense. Like like you guys are having your own struggle, but it has nothing to do with your race. You don't get your white privilege in a place full of white people, but because it's just that you're poor. That's all. So it's like, yeah.
Yeah, it's a joke and a framework of interpreting ideas that works a lot better for an audience that is like aware of the ways in which they have historically benefited from colonialism. That's a lot less obvious in like Runcorn, you know what I mean? Like wherever it is, right? To pick a almost entirely random example. So yeah, it's harder to convey that and important for building a common platform. So there are lots of laughs of recognition at the description of Field, which I think that's almost certainly from the sizable contingent of our regulars who met through Field. So what are you looking for in a relationship other than rolling on the floor laughing and feet? Are you worried about being left on the shelf at 36 as an old maid?
No, not at all. It's more like now I'm almost like 38. So it's like,
Okay.
and I think it was that was like so when I started writing those bits, I had become single after like a really long time, and it was more like, oh, this is the path every comedian has to take to talk about the dating apps.
Yes.
You know, and for me, like Field in general was like quite new, like in terms of as a concept, like, oh, this is weird how people are a little too expressive, right? And I come from an environment because of my Christian upbringing, and in terms of like conservative, like in India, like like talking about sex and things like that are quite a taboo. So for me, I looked at that, I'm like, okay, you guys are a little too liberated. Like, let's just maybe tone it down a bit.
Some of it should go back in the box. Actually, what you're arguing for, Joshua, is more repression, right? More closeting.
Yeah.
All right. So this is interesting. So you've got all of these people on the apps, and they're expressing and emoting in these various different ways. But you are still on like an app that has this focus on alternative and diverse sexualities and sexual identities. So what makes you different?
I think it's mostly realizing a bit of like I think I was at the phase where I'm like, oh, I don't really want anything right now, but it would be nice to have someone in your life. You know, not really. I don't want to like do a proper relationship. I think it's mostly. I think that app was quite helpful to sort of understand. Oh, hang on, there are other people like this. You're not the only one, because I'm sort of conditioned to think that if you start dating someone, it's like, this is how it's going to be, and this is how it has to be morally, right? But then that's not reality. But there's a lot of people who are like, oh, I think this is a good aspect to have in my life, but it's not the only thing I want in my life. I have all of these other aspects of my life that I'd like to prioritize equally. And this does not define who I am as a person. So it was good to like, especially coming out of something and you're like, I don't have the emotional bandwidth or mental bandwidth to like prioritize all of this. So that was quite good. That way I'm still in that phase where I'm like, because, and especially like doing stand-up, you're like, most of your evenings are consumed with performing, and you're like, and when you like try to go out with someone and you're like, they ask you, oh, when are you next free? And I'm like, 3 weeks from now, you know. It was a bit hard to sustain, and I just really wanted to prioritize things that I really love doing, like stand up or like just hanging out with friends. I didn't want to lose out friends, so I for like such a situation was quite helpful. I think funny stories like someone from Field was sat in the audience when I did the joke. The joke is a lot more evolved now. It's on my social media.
Yeah.
And like someone sat there and they're like, hey, we're running a night in collaboration with the club. But the person from working from there said like, oh, that's actually a pretty good description of the app. Like, and I was like, okay, thank you. Like, I think now the joke sort of, I elaborated a bit more. Like I cause more tension before I get to the punchline where I first say like, oh, this is an app where you're a bit of an anarchist. You don't accept what a traditional relationship is, or it's an app for expressing sexual liberation and freedom. Like people, it's more okay to talk about these things because everyone feels it. And then I say like, oh yeah, it's an app for basically people who are beyond saving,
Yeah.
And I think the guy thinks, oh, this is literally how we look at it. So it was nice to like get a gig through them. It's a nice little.
Yeah, it's lovely. It's interesting that approaches to it as well, because it's like, I mean, the first two things that you said there are sort of, broadly accurate or like substantively accurate, is my understanding. But the third one is placing it in sort of, semi-pejorative terms, but also terms that, I think any user of the app would recognise, and there's a laugh of recognition and self-knowledge there. Yeah. But also, it's interesting that the beyond saving is the term that you reach for, coming from a conservative Indian Christian background. Because I'm like, saving is like that's a very redemptive word to use there.
Yeah, but I feel like people I think the people who are on field would laugh at that because they also think like oh, like what does saving mean? Like I think for them like there is nothing to be saved from. So they probably find that funny, but as a social construct, we know that this is like the outcast crowd, and it's like you can't live your life in the field way in society, right? You can't like say it out loud. So for them, they would find that funny because it's like according to this structure that we have in society, I'm beyond saving. And which can be funny to that person, but I'm trying to pretend like, oh, I'm in this world and I'm looking at you and judging you.
I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I think there are quite a lot of people who do, live their lives in what you describe as being the field way, right? Like who have sort of, extended polycules and lack of relationship hierarchy and all of this sort of stuff, right? And have these sorts of alternative approaches. So, like, it is, practical up to a point. Now, the extent to which it's compatible with a lot of life priorities that involve, the expression of norms of bourgeois domesticity, that's a separate question, right? Yeah. But, to the extent that it is possible to live a life like that, I think that is, incontrovertibly the case that is the case of some people. But I'm interested in this because you seem to be sort of like semi-detached from this and like moored in your background and upbringing in terms of your social attitudes, but you clearly have a desire within you to participate more in this world, but you feel that on some level it's not possible. So I want to know, like, is that something that you want to break out of? Are you comfortable with your kind of midpoint of where you are? Like, how do you see yourself and your sexuality interfacing with society like that, I suppose?
Yeah, I think it's like I'm comfortable like doing the things I want to do, but I don't know if I'd want to go out of my way to express everything. Like I wouldn't want to declare it, like, like, oh, hey, this is what I'm doing. Like, but if someone asked me, I'll say, oh, this is what I'm doing, which I don't mind saying how I am.
Very much an introvert's answer.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to broadcast it. So what does the optimal relationship model look like for you, given what you value, given what your priorities are, and given your desires?
I don't know. I think that's the thing. It's been quite evolving. Like, and these are things like I've been uncovering about myself just in the last few years. I've always thought this is how like a relationship should be. And like in my 20s, late 20s, I was like, oh, the goal is to have marriage, have kids, and so on.
Yeah.
And then like I briefly felt that way again with another person. And then afterwards I was like, I'm sort of like, I feel like I'm reliving. I think comedy is quite helpful that way in terms of like, I feel like I've got a bit of self-fulfilling purpose to do other things. So I don't need this idea of someone in my life all the time. I'm happy to be alone by myself. I'm perfectly comfortable with it. And at the same time, like, it'll be nice to have someone, but I'm trying to be honest and upfront about myself, where because I've gotten into relations where I'm like, oh, I think you're the one. I think I want to be with you forever. And I'm trying to be a bit more conscious to be like, that's not going to be the case, and I try to say it up front. And some people are okay with it, some people are not okay with it, and that's fair. Like, not everyone would accept it. And so that's been a bit more, and I feel like people in their 30s, or maybe not so much in their 30s, or more like in this generation of people, like all groups of ages, have started like realizing that, oh, this idea of this is how life should be, this is the family that I should have, is a bit of a capitalist idea, but also at the same time it can restrict your lifestyle of the sort of things that you want to do. So for me, I would find it quite difficult to like do the day job as well as like do comedy and like have time for friends, and I want to like travel a bit and things like that. Things that I've only been doing in my 30s, not so much in my 20s. So it's like I feel like I'm probably living now. So that's why I probably lean towards not making that my priority. So
yeah, that's fair enough. Well, no, it's good to hear, and I think provided you are honest and upfront with people, and like don't get huffy when what they want is not what you want, and you can all kind of part amicably.
It's not to say that I won't suddenly fall back and just meet someone like, oh, you know what, I think like I'll stick with you for good, or whatever for good means. So
until one of you dies, I think that's traditionally the answer to that. Cool. I think that's a lovely point to end it on. So Joshua, if people want to catch up with your stuff, where should they do that? What have you got to plug?
I think Instagram is the best place. Joshua Bethanaia _comedy.
Lovely stuff. Okay, amazing. Thanks for chatting, Joshua. It was a lovely chat and lovely set, and we'll see you in a bit. Bye.
Yeah, thanks.
That was the Quantum Leopard podcast. If you want to catch a live show in London, look us up at Linktree /Quantum Leopard to sign up to the mailing list. We will never take advertising because advertising is cultural poison, but from each according to their ability to each according to their need. So if you enjoyed our guests in your ears, but would like them in your eyes as well, we have videos of whole shows up on patreon.com /Quantum Leopard. We only charge when a new live show video comes out. If you enjoyed the show, why not give us a 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice, and or share this episode on the socials. Editing was by Rhys Lawton, who is conventionally attractive and fun at parties. Music was composed and produced by Rooks Production Services at I Am Rooks on the socials. That's Rooks with an E. The Quantum Leopard podcast is distributed and licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 international license, which means you can share it as much as you like, but don't change it or sell it in any way, because I will find out where you live. Kind love, and see you soon. Bye.